Hey guys, and welcome to the PickleBros Podcast, where we have middle-class pickleball conversations. We don't fuss about the pros or the newest paddle technology. Instead, we focus on the shared nuances of the game and everyday problems that plague everyday players like you from 3-0 to 5-0. We're about to get into the topics, so go and grab your paddles. It's 002. Our first topic, and I really hate to even say the word DUPR. DUPR, stupor. Just how fed up with DUPR are you? What is their algorithm? Are they accurate or not? Will their games ever actually be updated in real time like they advertise? So, Stolp, go ahead and tell us, what is the thing you always say after DUPR match?
Add it to my DUPR.
Just add it to my DUPR.
Add it to the DUPR.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess to kick this off, I enjoy DUPR for the reason of, let's put something on the line. Let's make this rec game matter. Let's bring four players with similar skill sets together to hopefully, put it into DUPR and have it affect our score, hopefully positively. The one thing that I will say as this conversation kicks off, people look at this thing. I mean, I was in a restaurant.
Unfortunately, they do.
They do. And I was having a business meeting outside of pickleball. And they're like, I brought you up because I met somebody who really likes pickleball. The first thing this stranger did that I've never met was instantly pull up my DUPR and evaluate who I've played against and played with and who my partner was. And if I was good enough to them, and then the business
get the
meeting
respect right away.
Yeah, to see it. And so I was like, man, I really need to make this thing look good if strangers of the pickleball world are out there evaluating it on me. So anyways, as we lean into this discussion, I just want to say, no matter how you feel about it, people are looking at it. So we have to accept that it's part of our pickleball life. Jesse, what are your thoughts?
I'm mostly negative on DUPR. I'm trying to appreciate what they try to do. But I think there's two major issues. One is that they lump together mixed doubles and same gender doubles. And for those of us who have a mixed doubles partner that's weaker than us, that this lowers your rating, right? So my partner is my wife, and we were around the border between 3.5 and 4.0. And even though I consider myself to be pretty close to a 4-5 player, when we play mixed, if we win at 3-5, if we don't win by enough, our DUPR score goes down, even though I feel like I played really well. And so that's one issue. And then the second issue is the way that DUPR partitions credit for a particular game.
Oh, yeah.
So, we just had a DUPR league here in Colorado Springs. And my partner, his DUPR rating is 4.93, and mine currently is 4.38. So there's a 0.55 differential between us.
He's good, but the divide is not that much.
I think we're pretty similar in ability, I would say. So, and I think you would agree with that.
All right, so Jesse's got a problem with not partitioning the different things and the spread there. What do you think about it? You fed up with it?
Is this for me? Oh, sorry. Yeah. All right, so I have a lot of opinions about DUPR, but what comes to mind immediately hearing Jesse talk is that Jesse, who we respect immensely and actually call the sensei, recently swore off DUPR because he was so frustrated by the inaccuracies and just nobody understands the algorithm. It's confusing. It's really cool to play a match and see instant results affecting your rating. That part of it we're all super drawn to. But the inaccuracies, everybody's always complaining about DUPR, like constantly. And yet the sensei just yesterday around after 2 p.m., 3 p.m. something, he's like, hey, it's DUPR Tuesday, and no one's brought up their rating. What's going on? So
I knew he couldn't stay away. I knew he would not be able to stay away. That lasted a week and a half, everybody.
Yeah.
That's not bad. It's not exactly cold turkey, but we got to phase this thing in, right? So I think so. I played tennis for 30 years, and the rating system in tennis is super simple. You're either, if you're an advanced player, you're either a 4.5 or a 5.0, and there's not a whole lot of arguing or controversy at that. It's like he's a good player. It's all about how he does in tournaments and leagues, and it's more win-loss based. So DUPR for me was super fascinating because it really added a separator between you and the other players. But like Jesse said, the aspect of the doubles, especially if you only play with one person for a long time, like in a league like we just did, DUPR doesn't know really what to do with you, I don't think. And they seem to have an opinion on who to give the credit to. These guys will tell you behind the scenes that they don't know anything about the game itself. They're just computer geeks. So these are the guys that we place our faith in because it's all we have. But we remain addicted all the same.
Yeah, well, let me jump in and then ask you a question back on that, Tim, real quick. So I just want to say I'm totally fed up with DUPR, and Jesse and I, we kind of went unified together on going cold turkey on DUPR, and I actually did forget. Partially is because I was in Utah playing pickleball with you, Tim. But awesome. I forgot it was DUPR Tuesday, and so when I got on there, I was just like, that's why I don't like this thing, because it's like my doubles hadn't gone up at all. My singles did go up, even though I haven't won a singles match in 4 matches in a row.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. So
that's how you want to do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Losing constantly and going up. But you mentioned tennis. You're either advanced, you're 4.5 or 5.0. Do you think DUPR is making a mistake going out to the, and I just had this thought hearing you say that, are they making a mistake going out to the 100th place or even the 10th place? I guess with the 10th place, you'd have the 4.5 on the 4.5 and the O. What do you think?
In terms of getting people interested, I can't say they're making a mistake because I am super interested in that thing going up even a tick. I'm like, oh, did you see that? I went up 100th of a point. That's right, dude. I'm coming.
Yeah. Stolp, do you remember that phase?
I don't think it's a mistake.
Yeah. Stolp, do you remember that phase where we played like 40 games in a 3-week period trying to raise our DUPR?
Oh, yeah. And actually, it worked. This DUPR League worked. It's like, we talk crap about it, but the things we do to improve it, thanks to Master Sensei Jesse and his algorithmic nerdery, we know exactly what to do. You find a lower partner and you play against good people. In my DUPR league matches, my partner is 5.0, and I was rated when we started this thing like, I don't know, 4.2, 4.3. And he would get the lion's share of the credit when we would win. And Jesse's like, dude, you got to enter tournaments with somebody who's lower DUPR rated, but just as good or if not better than you, and start winning, and you'll get the credit. So we started kind of not manipulating the system, but just logging in a lot of games. So I did DUPR League sessions at our local Lifetime. We did the DUPR Flex League. We would put the competitive rec games into DUPR, and now I'm sitting at a 4.51. And you know what? I'm darn proud of that. It took a lot of work to do it, but thanks.
Screw you, because in that whole endeavor, I went up 0.16 the entire effort. That was all it was.
Hey, so what's interesting about that Stolp story, or that story Stolp, is that you started off as like a 4.1, and then your partner started off as like a 4.6.
So
and that gap has persisted throughout your league play, and now he's a 5.0 and you're a 4.5.
Right.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
That's what happens when you stick with the same partner. DUPR treats you the same throughout your entire experience together.
Actually, Tim, you made an observation on that.
You guys called it brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. All right.
Hey, don't be shy about using that word.
You're brilliant, Tim. You gave us, as much as we talk about DUPR, and maybe you can call it bad mouthing, you did make an observation. And then after you point that out, I want you to kick over to Jesse, because Jesse has thought about the algorithm a lot as well. So go ahead and make your brilliant observation about DUPR's algorithm.
Right. So I just gave the example with Stolp and his partner, and how the gap between them has stayed consistent because they play together, and DUPR treats them the same. Well, they treat them the same relative to each other's DUPR scores, or DUPR ratings. So they advance at the same rate, but that gap continues. So the way to really get as accurate of a DUPR rating as possible is to play with different people, to constantly mix up your partnerships, because then you're giving DUPR more data to work with. They
Really
get a clear,
emphasize the U in universal there, huh?
absolutely. And that's probably what I think this just dawned on us yesterday, that maybe this is what DUPR had in mind the entire time. Like, they want you to get out and play with different people, and then they will reward you with the most accurate rating possible. So, Jesse, what do you think?
I think for a while I was really interested in trying to increase my DUPR rating. You remember me and Ian challenged you and Jeff, because I was like eyeing Jeff's DUPR rating, and I was like, oh, I want a piece of that.
Like Jeff was.
Yeah, right. And I spent a lot of effort thinking about how am I going to get my DUPR up, and it really hasn't yielded much return for me. And I think I'm starting to feel like Sisyphus, the guy that was pushing the boulder up to the top of the hill for all of eternity, and then every time you reach the top, it would just fall back down again. And I think once I recognized the futility of it, I was able to enjoy pickleball again. So I do occasionally check DUPR. I checked it yesterday, but only because of this podcast. I wanted to be ready for it. And when I do check it, it's more like, oh, I'm just curious about what's happening, not so much obsessed about, well, this is really a valid reflection of who I am as a pickleball player.
So, Jesse, you talk about other rating systems, and I'm curious to the audience base listening to this, do they care about other rating systems, or is DUPR the universal thing to care about? What do you pay attention to outside of DUPR, and why?
I do look at my WPR and my UTPR, and you can find those on your profile at pickleballtournaments.com. What I like about those ratings is that they separate mixed from gender, so from same gender. So I'm hopeful that my men's doubles ratings will go above 4.5, but they're very slow to incorporate data. So like, I played this tournament 3 weeks ago, I think, in Texas, and those data have not been updated yet.
And do they evaluate your skills to the 10th, the 100th, or just round numbers?
I believe they have both. They give 100th, and then they have one that just to the 10th.
Yeah, because when you look at these tournaments, it's all 3.5, 4.0, 4.5, 5.0, or whatever. There's no, the 100th, 10th, they're not incorporated. So, we should care because it gives us a truer representation of who we are when you look into the decimal ranges. But does pickleball care? Does this tennis system have it right, where it's just, hey, you're this, and deal with it?
And right here, we've looped back around to what we've done the entire time, where we hate DUPR, we analyze DUPR, we talk about the importance of DUPR, what are the other pickleball languages in terms of rating systems and how they maybe collaborate. And then we circle back all the way around to the value of DUPR, right? The fact that someone at a random business meeting will check it, and it's so important. And it's just like, it's like the weight you can't get off your neck. It's just, and then you don't like what your rating is, and you got a problem with the algorithm, but it's super useful. It's like, I mean, I know that if people listening probably are hearing everything we're saying and more, and just losing their mind. So DUPR is a topic that can probably, hours and hours. And even people are going to have thoughts that we haven't thought of.
Hey, before we close on this topic, if that's where we're going, I just want to add, I think DUPR has all the ingredients for a perfect recipe.
I do agree with that.
I do not think we are at that perfect recipe. I think there's a lot of different tweaks that still need to be made. My hope is that the nerds above in pickleball, nerdery kingdom, wherever that is, create this perfect system that the data is instantaneous. It breaks us up between mixed doubles and men's doubles.
Yeah.
Our singles ratings are accurately reflected. and then everybody's happy. To do that in a perfect world, it takes a long time. So I'm just hopeful after trial and error, it is going to be the system, because we know there's contracts involved, there's money involved. It's not going away. That's my opinion.
Their advertising lock is crazy.
It's not going away. So it's you love it or hate it, but deal with it. And then my hope is that it'll get better over time.
So just fed up with it, but live with it. I actually think those are really good comments. And we will, of course, be circling back to DUPR, because that is an endless well of interest in the pickleball community. But I want to shift phases to another really interesting thing that I think a lot of people will vibe with and understand. And that is going to be the marital stress of pickleball. And no spoilers ahead on who is who, but two of us play with our wives. One of us has played with our wife. And one of us, I would say, just has to manage the family time management limitation of pickleball. So, Tim, why don't you go ahead and start talking about, reveal which one you are, and go ahead and deal with the marital stress of pickleball, our second love, our second wives.
Right. So I am the last person that he mentioned. My wife doesn't really play. I've tried to get her into it. She actually really enjoys it, but we haven't been able to spend that much time with it. And it's because she's so busy. And then I could be more generous, but I'm out playing with my buddies. And that's the part of it that I really have to manage, because so it was once explained to me that my wife keeps the symbols of my manhood on a fireplace mantle.
Not you.
Locked in a jar.
Someone else.
No. This is me. It was explained to me that that was their perception of me and my wife. And while I don't think that's entirely accurate, there is no such jar on the top of my fireplace. The sentiment is received, but yeah, I don't want to upset my wife. I want to do what I love to do, and which is play pickleball and come home to a happy wife. That is the key to unlocking happiness in my life. Period. Play as much pickleball as possible without upsetting the established order at home. Right. So with me, it's, and first of all, she is all about it. I have to give her an enormous amount of credit. She knows how happy it makes me. She knows it keeps me healthy. It keeps me social, all the things we love about the game, right? She recognizes that in me. And for whatever reason, I've chosen to, very early on, I chose to sort of be uncompromising. Like, I'm going to do this. This is just happening. I'm going to do this. But so I put that front out there, but I'm also very careful. I'm not stupid about it. I play at 5 a.m. Boom. I picked that up in Utah, and I moved here in Colorado, and something was already established like that. And I was super grateful, because that just works. You're not interfering with any family time doing that. You're waking up at obscene hours and going and playing in the dark with a bunch of other psychos, and you get back and the kids are just getting ready for school. I mean, it couldn't be any better.
It's actually such a great routine. And I know that we all play at 5 a.m. Like, and I guess I was going to make the joke. You make sure you give your wife some props, because that's one way to, make sure you don't end up on the couch. But waking up at 5 a.m., sometimes I do sleep on the couch because it's so early. She doesn't like the alarm going off and waking her up. So go ahead.
Yeah, let me weigh in on this topic for a second. And by the way, before I do, let me preface this. If you're single, go out and play pickleball. I guarantee you within a month, you won't be single anymore. If there's singles playing, find singles nights out there in pickleball land. Like, it is the ultimate social tool that you will find somebody with a common interest, whether it's pickleball or not. So go do that. Now, if you're not married and you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, go out. And there will be tension if you are a pickleball player and your spouse, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend is not. There will be tension at one point that you're putting too much attention towards pickleball and not the your other half. Now, as a married person, in Ian's explanation of which one are we, I'm the person of not going to be playing with my wife again. And here's why.
Make me laugh every time.
And I know my wife is probably listening to this. If this is the first one we put out, podcast wise. She'll listen to probably this one. So I just have to say, and I will continue to say this, honey. I love my wife, and she is super flexible towards my pickleball schedule and knows the passion and love I have for this sport. I have we'll get into this later. I played professional baseball. Sports is in my DNA. Playing a 162 game season for 8 months out of the year and training, like, my wife knows that life. So she knows the level of psychoticness that exists inside of my brain. And so it transfers over into anything I'm passionate about. Pickleball clearly is that. Anyways, here's why I won't play with my wife anymore. And she is on board with this, by the way. We said, you know what would be fun on a Sunday afternoon? We should join a tournament together. I'm a 4-5, you're like a 1-5. We put those together, and we're like a 3-5, right?
2.7. Okay,
Yeah.
I played with her. 2.7.
Okay. So we're like a 3-5 is what we said. And I said, I'm walking into this place. I'm like, babe, I'm the best one on these courts. You got nothing to worry about. You just sit down, you go get yourself a nice drink, and just enjoy the show. Like, we're going to win this thing. You're going to walk out of here with a gold medal around your neck. And so as this tournament is playing out, we're quickly realizing in mixed doubles, you go after the weaker player. So Sarah, my wife, her portion of the court was about 4.5%. She had the outside half of the line, and they were still finding her, and they were just pushing it and body bagging her. And then all of a sudden, here I am just running everywhere to get to every ball, like, get out of the way, boom, knocking her out. And she's like, what are you doing? So the next thing, time out, like we're on a knee, like having marital counseling together, like, what's going on? What's happening here? What are we doing? And she's like, you got to let me play. I don't care if we lose, you got to let me play. So at that point in time, it's just like, swallow your pride, let her play. And then we go ahead and get beat every game from there on out. Not only do we not win a game, like we lost by a lot. And so it was like, you know what, in the car on the way home, it's like one of those talks. It's like, what did we learn there? We learned that was not enjoyable, but we still love each other. And so it's like after that, I don't think tournaments are our thing. I will still play rec play with her if she insists, at open play when the grandmas and grandpas are out there running around. Like, I'll do work and we'll win games. But in a tournament setting, I don't think it's for us anymore. So the Stolps are done.
I got it. And Jesse, I'll hand you the baton in just a second, because I think that your thoughts on this are super insightful, and I kind of want you to round out and close out the topic. And so I'll just go quick that I am the guy who plays with my wife currently competitively. We have a tournament coming up here in about 2 weeks. Actually, and later this morning, going to go to open play and play with her at the Advanced Lifetime Open Play, just to get the reps in. And it's funny, Stolp, you said something that I really wanted to get on. It's like Sarah said to you, you got to let me play. That is the hardest thing I find with my wife, who, by the way, has embraced pickleball, goes to open plays by herself, like she's drinking the Kool-Aid, man, but she's drinking it in moderation, where we're absolute psychos. The fact we're even doing a pickleball podcast. So, and because I have put in way more time than her, just objectively, I like to say I'm also in that 4-5 range. She is in that 3-5 range, and if she developed a couple skills that we've talked about, I think she should start to hedge up that ladder. But it's really hard for me to sit back and let her take balls that I know I could do more with, or maybe she's not attacking, or she's setting, maybe the patterns are getting out of sync. So pickleball is like marital counseling. You get all the crap out and you fight about it, and then you reconcile, and then you fight some more. Like, some of the best and worst conversations we've had together have revolved around because we've been playing pickleball together. So, Jesse, with that, I want to give it on to you and let you roll on this, because I think you got some really good stuff to say.
Yeah, so I also play with my wife, and I think, Stolp, you said that your wife said, I don't care if I win, right?
Mm-hmm.
that she just wanted to be able to touch the ball. And I think that's an attitude that some wives and some women have, and some men for that matter. But for me, it's always about winning. And fortunately, me and my wife, Michelle, we're on the same wavelength there. So that's the bottom line. She doesn't, if I take 100% of the shots, she's okay with that as long as we're winning. And so I think it's really important to have the same philosophy on that point. And so it's working pretty well for us. Not to say there haven't been times of stress, but I think we're at a point, we're at a good space right now, good place right now.
What kind of, like, let's say there's someone listening to this who plays with their spouse, and maybe had an experience like Stolp, where she's just like, dude, you dump trucked me over, you stepped on me, I don't like it. My wife has also made I don't think I've ever actually made contact with her physically. She claims I have. She claims I have, which means it's happened, of course. But I do recognize I get big and scary, especially on that forehand side. She's like, am I going to get hit or not? So for a spousal couple that has, and I do know we do play with some spousal couples where the female is the more aggressive or dominant or better player. So it's not necessarily just male to female in this perspective. But for someone who's had a bad experience like Stolp, or still kind of finding their marital identity in pickleball, like me and my wife, Rachel, like, got any advice for what to work through, how to conversations,
My advice is to figure out what her goals are. And if it's about winning, then she has to understand, in your case, you're a full point better than her. You're going to take 70%, maybe even more of the court. And she has to be okay with that. But if her goal is not to win, if her goal is she wants to play, she wants to get touches on the ball, then I would suggest that you respect that and just let her have fun. And you're going to mostly be a spectator because she'll be targeted. And you kind of need to just be okay with that for the sake of the partnership and the marriage.
Yeah, I love it. All right. That is another topic I think we can circle back around to at some point as stories develop. But let's move along here. We're kind of running out of time. So I want to dive into our last topic, the weakest link. And that can, maybe it's you, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's someone in your group. So I don't necessarily want to direct this to anyone, but who has got some opinions on managing, playing with, or being the weakest link?
So I'll jump in. I'm not going to talk about one particular person who may be the weakest link in your group. I will just I'm going to go personal for a little bit here. So I moved here in August, and there's a group that played. Again, these are the psychos that I mentioned earlier that play at 5 a.m. that I discovered at a local park. And there were like 2 or 3 people in that group that I thought were advanced-ish players or who could grow to be advanced players. And I just wanted to play with them. I didn't really want to mess around with everybody there necessarily. I mean, they were all terrific guys. I wanted to hang out with them as much as possible, maybe just not dedicate a whole lot of pickleball play to, if that makes sense. So I kind of took this big group and I made it a little bit smaller. And I mean, they still had a group to play with, and they were all, in my mind, of the same skill levels. I thought it was a decent arrangement. And then I took some of the more advanced players and we kind of formed our own group, because quality of play is really important to me as a pickleball player. I want to be challenged. I want to get better. I want to be competitive. And if you're,
by the way, to do those things, you must be playing with quality players. So that's sort of
absolutely
like the rule. If that's what you want, that's what you need.
Right. And I don't know if that translates in all circles, but with me and my experience, I learned to play in Georgia, and I had an advanced group of guys out there too. That's just how I do it. Like, I just want to play with people that are of the same level of skill, because it just gets more out of my game. I'm more into it, all that stuff. So if we're talking about one person who may be bringing that down a little bit, there's no perfect way. I'd love to hear what you guys say, but that definitely is a dynamic this guy's bringing down the level a little bit.
Yeah.
Everybody's targeting him. You can see on his face he's kind of self-conscious about it. He realizes that he's the guy that's losing the most
And then
out
it
of
starts
anybody.
spiraling in the head.
Yeah, and then it just gets worse from there. So it's like, how do you put a Band-Aid on that situation? Do you try to reach out to him without offending him and try to help him out? Or do you just kind of contact him a little bit less? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Go ahead,
Well, yeah, for me, I think this is more of a conversation around the evolution of your pickleball groups. We all started out the weakest link at one point or another, and then you evolve in with that group or out of that group, either being the weakest link or the best player. And then you find a different group, and then you evolve from that group, and then you find a group where you're texting at all hours of the night, doing these Marco Polos, starting a podcast with, and playing at 5 a.m. That's the evolution.
You're talking about us, right?
Oh, now we're at that evolution point. Exactly. So I think when you're dealing with weakest link, my personal situation is always, okay, I know everyone's better than me. How do I get to be the upper echelon of the group? What do I need to do to chase those guys to be more like them? And then it was learn, drill, understand your weaknesses, have some, transparent dialogue with people you trust, look at video. There's a lot of components into getting better. And I feel like that was my evolution when I started, is understanding that. And then you find the next iteration of the group, and then you get even better. And now you're only satisfied when you play at high levels. So I think the conversation for me is less about what do you do with that weaker player? Because personally, I want to make that person better. I want to make them better so that they evolve into where they want to go. And Master Sensei Jesse had a good topic, because I like to win at all costs. I'm a very competitive guy by nature. So it's like, oh, guess what? I won all these games against so-and-so and their partner. It's like, well, how'd you do that? Well, I targeted so-and-so. Was that good for me? Probably not. Master Sensei would say, go after the better player. If you're trying to get better and there's a partner who's the better partner, target that person and see how that goes. So anyways, that's how I think about it is I want to make them better. I want to make me better. And so how do I do that? And then it's constantly evolving. So I don't know if I danced around that, but there you go.
I don't think you danced around it. In fact, you said something I want to respond directly to. And I think it's what you opened with was, at some point, we will all be the weakest player, whether we're starting the game or we're moving up to the next group. Heck, even if you get 4 pros together, I know we don't care about talking about the pros, but I'm just talking about like the highest levels of the game. Excuse me. If you get 4 people together, someone is going to be the weak person in the group. Maybe the spread is minimal enough where you don't feel it, but there will always be a player who can be perceived as that escape hatch, or not quite as talented, or not quite as fast. And that's 3 out of 5, though. That doesn't matter kind of what you're talking about. So I think having a weakest link in your group or in your play session or whatever it is unavoidable. Because when I go to open play later today, I really do expect to be the best player of the 30-ish players who will be there. But in Utah, there were a couple of groups where I wasn't even in the top half of the good players of the group, right? And so before I pass it off to Jesse again, the one thing I want to kind of my thought about when it comes to the weakest link is, if that's who you are, accept it. Don't try and argue against it, make excuses, fight about it, because what I have found, and mostly being one of the better players, because I've been unfortunate enough not to be in groups where I'm the weakest link, because that's a really strong group. If I'm by far the weakest link, it's like I want to be playing in that group. But you will be appreciated and accepted, and you will not frustrate players as much when you openly recognize and put away the delusion and say, hey, here's who I am, here's the level I am. I understand I can't do all the things you guys do. I am trying my best. Give me some advice. Tell me what you would like me to adjust. and just be patient with me. Like having that as your standard of being the weakest link goes so far, I think, with players who are playing with that person. Like, what do you think about that, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, I've been the weakest link, and then I've been one of the stronger links and frustrated by a weak link. So I see both perspectives. I think if you're really the weak link and it's like pretty glaring, you don't belong in that group. And hopefully you have the self-awareness to just kind of withdraw from that situation. If you're the weak link, but it's kind of in that gray area where you're not sure, then you kind of have to feel your way. You kind of have to read the room. Are these guys reaching out to you? Are they inviting you to play? Or is it always you pursuing them? This kind of thing, right? And then if I'm in the position of being one of the stronger players, and then there's somebody that's not really cutting it, that's not going to be the person I go to first when I invite people to play.
Yeah, awesome.
I think too, though, if the weakest link in the group, I think attitude, passion, coachability, all these different non-tangibles you got to take those into consideration. And what I mean is, does this person has the self-awareness potential, if the weakest link has the self-awareness that they are the weakest link, what are they doing behind the scenes to remedy that?
Are they drilling?
Are they drilling? Yeah. Are they learning? Are they getting out there and playing in different groups, but still with the upper group as well? I think attitude matters, and if you're trying to be better, like show you're trying to be better. I think that is an important quality to have if you're not the top of the group.
Yeah, and as you guys know, I'll drill with somebody that's ambitious, a hard worker, but they're not quite there yet. I will take the time to drill with that person and try to move them up to the next level.
And before we close, because we're getting real close up here on the time, button up against it here, is on that point, Jesse, where you will maybe not go and compete or play with those weaker players, but you'll still invest your time. I do think, and I know I'm certainly guilty of this, is if you are a stronger player, you have to be slightly more gracious and generous with your time. And perhaps, and by the way, drilling with someone who's, of a less talent pool than you, you're still getting stuff out of that. So it's not, if you've got a weakest link, you can still build into their game or into that relationship or their friendship.
Sure. It makes you think about the game more, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like if you're not necessarily getting the best shot coming at you, you got to adjust to it. In fact, if you're drilling with someone who's got that pristine, perfect shot every time, yeah.
And I want to throw in there too. Sometimes you can get better not even by playing. And we joked about this earlier in this episode about Marco Polo and getting your group of guys and texting and all, et cetera, et cetera. It gets you thinking about the game in different ways, and you get commentary from a group of people, whether it's about your game or the game of pickleball in itself, that you learn. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have taken a lot of pieces and nuggets from the conversations we've had offline in these Marco Polos and say, how do I incorporate that? And then get thinking about it before I actually do it. And that has made me a better player. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be on the court. This is off the court stuff that you can do to get better.
Yep.
You should maybe just explain to our viewers that Marco Polo is a video sharing app that we use to communicate with each other when we're not in the same physical place.
And we're basically talking to each other all day long, doing this, talking about pickleball, different ideas, different stresses, how our games went, doing recaps. I mean, I'm sure we're not the most pickleball obsessed people on the planet, but
we're up there.
But thanks for tuning in to the PickleBros Podcast, guys, where we have middle class pickleball conversations for the everyday player. We will see you guys next week.